Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to my video for the day. Today I'm going to be playing a game with the black pieces, and we'll get right into it. Well, the chessboard looks a little different right now, and I put a Poland spring bottle in honor of the opening that White played. White played B4, the Polish opening. I've never played against this, but it looks like he's trying to bring his bishop to b2 and start an attack this way. Weird opening, I gotta say. I went for e5, and he pushed b5. He's already trying to break through with the position. Um, I don't exactly know what the point of this is, but I continue. I went for c6, with the idea that if he captures on c6, my knight captures. I'm getting ready to push d5. Bring my rook here, have a semi-open file. It'll be an overall good game. So obviously he doesn't capture, and he goes a4. Wow, really aggressive expansion on the queen side by my opponent. I go for d5, and he plays bishop to b2, finally putting an attack on my e5 pawn. I go bishop to d6 to defend, and he goes e3, just adding more protection to his b5 pawn right here. I go knight to e7, and he plays knight to f3. Right here, knight to e7 is to protect this d5 pawn, but also now that he has a double attack against my e5 pawn, I'm going to go knight to g6. He goes bishop to e2, probably getting ready to castle, and I castle, and he does the same. I go a6, and he pushes c4. Now, this is one of the most interesting interactions I've ever seen. This is just all the pawns are on light squares, and I just don't know what to do. So I do what I normally do, and I go for a captures on b5, and after a captures on b5, I exchange rooks because, like you guys know, I like to play a game with less pieces, especially when it's this position that he probably knows because he plays 1b4. So he's probably been here before, and I have no clue what's going on. I played bishop to e6. So right here, I can actually capture both of these pawns and still be winning. D captures on c4, and after bishop captures on c4, e4 is coming, and this will be a favorable position for me. I can also play c captures on b5, and after this is not as effective because c captures on d5 opens up an attack against the b5 pawn, and my pieces are still on the 8th rank, and I have a doubled b pawn. But I don't want to break this tension. I want him to capture my pawns. So instead, I go bishop to e6, just adding another defender here. He goes d4, and d4 is a weaker move because it allows me to push e5, and it prevents his knight from hopping to d4 because he just pushed d4. So if you look at this knight, there are not a lot of very good squares. You can go back to d2 or e1. He actually elects to go knight to e5. And knight to e5 is it's an interesting move. Right here, I think the best move is probably queen to g5. Puts pressure on this knight, and maybe it even allows me to push my f pawn in the future. I went for queen to f6 here. Probably not as strong, but it still works. And he plays c5 to attack my bishop. So right here, the recommended move by the engine is bishop captures on e5. Or even bishop captures on c5, because after captures, knight can capture, and this bishop cannot recapture because the queen is defending the knight. Or even bishop captures here, and after d captures on e5 and knight captures on e5, this queen will unpin with queen to g5, and everything will be okay for for black. I, however, in this position played knight captures on e5, And this move allows me to continue the game, but it kind of gets rid of the advantage I have because of C captures on D6. And this is what I was going for actually. I thought I would let him create this isolated passed pawn because after first I would move the knight, move the bishop, and then open up an attack on this pawn. This pawn will be an easy target in the future because all his pieces are sitting on the back rank. But in this position, I just retreated my knight to d7, and he played f3. Here, probably best is just e captures on f3, and after rook captures on f3, I just retreat my queen. But I didn't go for this, and instead, I played knight to b6. So knight to b6 is a really questionable move. Knight to b6 with the idea of knight to c4, and then maybe even threatening the e3 pawn because he just pushed f3. This pawn is going to be isolated, and it'll be a weak pawn for the rest of the game. Knight to b6 is bad because f captures on e4 is here, and I don't have any time to recapture because of this threat against my queen. Oops, I didn't do that. This threat against my queen from the rook on f1. So I actually blundered a pawn. I played queen d8, trying to think if he captures, I'll just capture with my bishop, and then I can recapture his d6 pawn. It's not too bad, but in this position, he played e5. And now suddenly his passed d6 pawn is going to be really hard to get rid of because I don't have any pawns that can challenge it. So the only way to really break this structure is to start from the very back. I got to get rid of this pawn, and then I got to double attack this pawn, and then this pawn, and then this pawn. And that'll be really hard. He's actually in a much better position. If you just look at it, what position would you rather play? The guy with 3 pieces on his back rank, or the guy with this insane pawn structure that's basically impenetrable? In this position, I played knight 8 to d7. This is with the idea that I'm going to go knight to c4, and then maybe I'll even play knight to b6 to protect it. And he plays knight to c3, just continuing his development. We both hadn't developed our knights in the beginning of the game, so this was a good time. And I continued my idea knight to c4. This is actually a losing move because after bishop captures and d captures on c4, you get b captures on c6. This capture is forced, and now look, I have these 2 doubled pawns that'll be easy targets. They're not really doing anything. Even though this is a passed pawn, how am I going to push it? And also, again, look at this. So he probably should have captured there, but lucky for me, he didn't, and he played b captures on c6. And this is probably with the idea that after I play b capture on c6, now he can capture on c4. And after captures, the position's the same. But he actually moved. He missed one crucial move that I can play. Feel free to pause the video and try to find it yourself. If you did, good job. I don't think it was too hard to find because I mentioned it a little before, and also, yeah, it's knight captures on e3. And this comes with a threat against his queen and against his rook. So you don't really have time to capture my knight because now your queen's being threatened, and you probably should move your queen. Something like queen d3 and allowing me to make this trade. Now you're okay. However, this guy played c7. And c7's bad. Like really bad. But I'll show you why c7 is bad. But first, it's important to see that after queen d3 and knight captures on f1, now c7 is actually a good move because there's no other threats. I have to play something like maybe like queen to a8 to threaten his bishop, but I have to move my queen, and this knight's going to be lost. Can't let him capture here, and this is just too strong. I probably lose this game. But he played c7 immediately, and this loses the game instantaneously. This is a big blunder. Feel free to, again, pause the video. This move is slightly harder to find, and there's only one move that allows black to take the advantage. So if you guys found it, congratulations. You won the game for black. And if you didn't, well, you lost the game and you probably got -8 elo on chess.com. So unlucky for you. But the move that was played here is queen to g5. And queen to g5 is really, really strong. First, let me talk about other moves that aren't good. Knight captures on d1, really, really bad move, because you lose the queen, and now you lose a knight, right? So you lost basically your queen for his queen, and then you just lost a knight for free. That's bad. Knight captures the rook on f1. Why would you ever play that? And also another thing is I guess you could move your queen to a8 or to something like h4, but that's also not good because you just let him move his queen. He can just offer a queen trade, and now you're lost. But if you found queen to g5, you have won this game for black, because the threat is queen captures on g2 checkmate. But also, this knight still is forking the queen and the rook. Unfortunately for white, his bishop is on e2, so he can't bring his queen to e2 to help with the defense of the g2 pawn. So there's actually no way for him to move his queen and also defend his pawn. So in this position, he would have to probably play rook to f2, g3, or he plays bishop to f3. But this loses because now knight captures on d1, and black is completely winning. After rook captures on d1 and queen to e3 check, you get, well, he played king to f1, and now I played bishop to f5 with the idea of maneuvering my bishop here. He could probably resign the game now, but he tries to keep playing because, he does have this pretty strong structure. He captures my pawn on d5, but now bishop to d3, this wins the game. The king has nowhere to go, so you either have to block with the bishop or you give up the exchange. It was in this position that white resigned the game because, the best he can do, if he blocks with the bishop, then queen captures, king to g1, and then queen captures on d1. The game is not playable. And if he captures with the rook, queen captures with check. If you go to g1, then you get, for example, king g1, queen to b1 wins the bishop. If you go to f2, then you get queen d3. And again, if you go back to the first rank, you lose the bishop. But if you go to king g3, misclick, queen to e1 wins the bishop as well. So the game is most likely just over, and these pawns won't be able to promote. I guess eventually you would be able to play something like, after this, and you move the king, and this captures. I guess you could play knight to e7, force my king to move, and then queen the pawn, but I can just easily give up the rook, and it's no big deal. I'm still winning this game. So, none of this actually happened, of course, because after bishop to d3, my opponent resigned the game. Yeah, this was a really interesting game. I thought it was super interesting to see this pawn structure on the queen side before I broke it, obviously. This is just a fascinating position to me that I've never played before. Yeah, so that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for another video.